As we have discussed about the class and then general structure about the class object in the previous lecture, today in continue with that, we will be continuing with the concepts called constructor, destructor, and inheritance. So from these particular concepts, definitely one or two questions going to come either in theory, right, or in practical also. So please pay attention. So first of all, what is said to be a constructor? Constructor is said to be a concept, right? And constructor is said to be a special member function. Constructor is said to be a special member function which is written in C++ programming, object-oriented programming. So what is said to be special member function? What is special? What is the speciality given to that particular member function, right? So once the function has been defined or declared inside the class, then it is said to be a normal member function. When a particular function name, when a particular function name is similar to the class name, then it is said to be a special member function. I repeat, when the member function name is similar to the class name, then it is said to be what? Special member function. That is said to be constructor, right? So then how to execute this? Then what is the difficulties and why it is required, right? So the constructor, it is required to initialize the values in the programming, right? Initial values, if you wanted to do it, then you can do it through the constructor. You cannot initialize any values in the class. That is primary thing. I repeat, you cannot initialize any variable values inside the class. You can declare it, not initialization. Initialization is only possible through a constructor, right? How and when the constructor will execute? The constructor will execute when you are creating an object for a respective class. When and how the constructor will execute? When you are creating an object for the particular class, the constructor will execute. That means what? You no need to call that member function separately to execute it. In the previous class, I explained how to execute the function with the help of object, right? Object name dot the function name. So with the help of this particular syntax, you can call the member function, you can execute the member function. But in place of constructor, there is no need of this particular statement. That means when you are creating an object, by default, without calling that function, this constructor will execute. Constructor is nothing but a special member function. This it has to be declared under public section. And this constructor is not having any return type, right? Fine. So these are the things which I was talking. These are the characteristics of constructor. So the question it will be like, what is constructor and what are the characteristics of constructor? So what is constructor? I told you it's a constructor is said to be a special member function of a particular task. And use of the constructor, it is used to initialize the values. When it will execute? When you are creating an object for a respective class, it will execute, right? So the need of the constructor, it is mentioned here, and the constructor, it will not be having any return type, right? Because it is not returning any value. It is not used to operate anything. It is not used to compute anything. It is used to only to initialize the values. Again, I repeat, it is not used to compute anything. It is used only to initialize the values. Characteristics of constructors. The constructor name is always same as the class name, and it does not have any return type. Even the void is also not there. And these functions are all not static functions. These are all what in public, right? And the constructors, it will not have any default arguments, right? They can have default arguments, right? But the destructor, it will not be having default arguments, right? The constructor is invoked automatically when the objects are created, and this cannot be inherited through the derived classes, and it can call base constructors. An object with a constructor, it cannot be used as a member of union, right? So there are 8 characteristics. So out of this 8 characteristics, you can go through only the 6, right? 6 is more than enough, right, for 3-mark question. And if it is combined with the definition, it will be a 4-mark question. So what is constructor, and explain the characteristics of the constructor, it will be a 4-mark question. Or the question, you can write down the questions, right? What is constructor and what are the characteristics of constructor? It will be a 4-mark question. Or they may ask, what is constructor, explain with an example. Or they may ask, what is constructor, what are the different types of constructors? I will solve all your queries at the end. Please wait. You can note down your doubts. You can note down your doubts. I will solve at the end. Right? So the third question is, what is constructor and what are the different types of constructors? Right. So types of constructors are default constructor, parameterized constructor, and copy constructor. So default constructor is normal constructor without having any parameter. That is said to be a default constructor. Then parameterized constructor, right? So with the help of a parameter, if you are passing a value to a particular member function and initializing it, then it is said to be a parameterized constructor. Right? And copy constructor, if you are copying a particular object, here the pointer concept has been used, right? So you are passing the object as a parameter, and the object address will be initialized to the other object. I repeat, you are passing the object as a parameter, and you are initializing the address of the parameter to the other object. Then this is said to be copy constructor. You are making a copy of the object to the another object through the constructor. Let's see with a simple example. Before moving into this example, I will show you another example, like how to differentiate with the normal function and the constructor. Class constructor, as I told you already, it should be, constructor should be declared in public, and there should not be any data type, and the function name, the special function member function name, it is similar to the class name. So now this is said to be your constructor, right? See the name of this member function and this is similar, right? Here I have not declared any return type, void construction I have not declared. I've just declared CONS, right? Now next, a normal function, void function. It's a normal member function. So here I'm just displaying cout, welcome to member function. So here I am displaying cout default constructor. So here you need to create an object for this class CONSC C dot fun. If you are just calling this function, then you can execute this particular function, right? If you are just creating an object, then this particular constructor will execute. So if I execute this, the output it will be, first it will execute constructor and it will execute this function. So your output will be welcome to default constructor and welcome to the member function. What happened? 191634.
Also, I had a doubt in that last statement of constructor.
Doubts better you can note down it. I will
Okay,
clear
sir.
your doubts. I will clear everyone's doubt. Don't worry. Right. So this is how you have to execute. See here, the output it will be welcome to default constructor. So without calling this member function, I have not called this member function. As I told you, this is said to be a member function, but this member function I have not called here, but still it is working and it is giving the output. The reason, when you are creating an object, when the memory has been allocated for this object, this particular member function will execute. That is why it is said to be constructor. It is constructing the particular statements or particular values. Generally it is not used to display the statements, it is used to initialize the values. I'm just displaying how it will execute. That's it. So c dot function 2, this is said to be a normal member function. So to execute this normal member function, we need a object, and we need an operator to execute it. Otherwise it won't execute, right? If I just simply call function, it will not execute. So this is what I was explaining in the previous class, security, right? So many people are was asking what is security, how it is secured. So the data has been used here, but still it has not been executed if there is no object. So in that way it is said to be secured. So C dot function, if I say, then definitely it will execute. Right. So now this is said to be a just default constructor. So now parameterized constructor. So for the parameterized constructor, I'm just declaring a variable int a is equals to 10. So I'm just considering, I'm just having a value of the variable. So this you can take it with a cout statement also. And this I am passing it over here. I'm passing the variable here. Before this, you just take a screenshot of this so that I can modify this program for parameterized constructor. Take a screenshot of this. Have you taken? Please show me a thumb so that I can move it to the other program. Okay, fine. So I'm modifying this program for the parameterized constructor. As I told you, uh, considering I am having a value of a variable a is equals to 10. So that a variable I'm passing it over here. So this also has to be modified, and say suppose B, right? So here welcome to parameterized constructor, we can display the value of b also. So you can see the difference. Welcome to parameterized constructor 10. So it is displaying the value of the variable which is passed from the main function, right? You can display little bit neatly, right? So this way you can initialize the value of the variable from the main function to this, right? And I was telling you about the variable part. Variable initialization, it is not possible over here. See here, say suppose int a1 is equals to 10, right? So you cannot able to display that variable value, cannot able to display that variable value anywhere, because initialization is not possible, right? So we'll come back to the PowerPoint. So this is another example. This is another example for the default constructor: class student, private, public, and then main function, right? So private int roll number, public, it has been initialized over here, and s1, if I call this, then this particular value will be initialized, right? I'm not going to display this. I'm just going to initialize the value of the variable through the default constructor. Then parameterized constructor, same thing with the help of object. I'm just passing the value and I'm initializing to the local variable in the class. Next is very important thing is copy constructor. This concept has been used in the operator overloading also. So you can understand in detail, so that operator overloading also it is important, and it will be simple for you that time. So class, student, private, and then roll number. See here, this is set to be the default constructor, and this is set to be your parameterized constructor. So in the default constructor, I'm just creating an object s1. So this particular value will get created. That means roll number will be initialized to 10, right? And student s2, s1 value. So the s1 value, the object of s1, I am passing it as a parameter over here, right? I am passing the object s1 as a parameter to this particular object, constructor. So the address will be taken out over here. See here, the address will be taken out and it will be initialized to the local object as a. So here a student ampersand a is said to be what, a local object. This is said to be the local object, right? In this local object, this address, the s1 address will be initialized to the local object. See the data type with a student. So student is said to be the class name, right? So in that case, a is said to be the object. So this s1 object address will be initialized to a, right? And then roll number is equals to a dot roll number. That means what, whatever value had passed from this object to this particular place, right? I am initializing to the another variable. We can initialize here to another variable. No need, it's not necessary that I have to initialize in the same variable. You can initialize to the another variable also, or you can keep this variable, because this variable, it is different for this particular object and it is different for this particular object. So you can keep it separately also, that is not at all a problem, right? So I was just explaining it like how this object will be initialized to the another object, and how the values of the object will be initialized to the local object. So this is said to be what, the copy constructor, right? So constructor is done. Let me just complete Destructor, then I will solve your doubts. Then we'll move on to inheritance. Right. So constructor overloading is not that much important. It is nothing but like multiple constructors are being used over here. And destructor, it is said to be again a member function with prefix of a special symbol, that is tilde symbol, right? The tilde symbol which is representing the destructor, and this it can be called only once. And for the destructor there is no parameter, right? What is the use of destructor is to destroy the memory which has been allocated for the object, right? To destroy the memory which has been allocated for the object, right? So that will be done at the end of the program. That it will be done at the end of the program. So when you are terminating your program, during that time your destructor will execute. Constructor will execute at the time of object creation. Destructor will execute at the end of the program, the termination of the program, right? So destructor and constructor, they may combine and they may ask for a 3-mark question. What is constructor and destructor? Explain constructor and destructor, right? In that way they may frame a question. It is for a 3-mark question. You can note down the question. Explain constructor and destructor. And the other question is, what are the differences between the constructor and destructor? So this is again a 3-mark question, right? Differences means you can write down the features so that it will be a destructor. Here I will show you the destructor also, how it will execute. Just simply put a tilde symbol. This is from destructor, right? See, this is from destructor. That means what? Your memory, whatever memory you have created for the your program has been created for this constructor, right? This constructor has been destroyed over here. Irrespective of the types, different types, the memory has been deleted, right? It will continue with the next concept, inheritance. Inheritance is said to be the concept which is used to extend the program, right? Say suppose in future if you wanted to extend your C++ program, you can use this inheritance concept so that you can extend it from the properties which has been already declared or defined in the previous classes, that you can take it down to the other classes. So that is the major advantage of C++, right? Through this inheritance. Right. So say consider there are multiple classes, class 1, class 2, class 3, likewise. So class 1 is having some properties, right? So if class 2 wanted to use some properties of class 1, then I can go with inheritance. I tell you one thing, in inheritance, there is no programming concepts will be asked, right? So till the constructor and destructor, your programming questions will be asked, right? From inheritance, there won't be any programming questions will be asked for your theory paper, right? So hopefully we have done with the programming concepts, right? As I already initially told, the assignments, so in each and every assignments I will be posting 3 programs, 3 questions, right? So at the end of the session, definitely you will be having around 50 to 60 programming questions, so that will be more than enough for your board exam, right? So for the board exam, as I told you, questions will be asked from inheritance, and after inheritance will be basically the theory questions, right? So the question, it will be a 4-mark question. What is inheritance? What are the different types of inheritance, right? So when you are explaining about inheritance, you have to explain the concept of inheritance and the use of inheritance and the structure, how it has to be used in the inheritance to achieve inheritance. So this is the structure that it has to be used to achieve inheritance. That is derived class name colon, that is said to be the visibility, right? And you can say the visibility mode and then base class name. So visibility mode, it can be a private or public or protected. The visibility mode, it can be private, public or protected. So this you can mention about the visibility mode and the base class name. So whatever the base class name you are mentioning with this particular properties, that it will be public for this derived class. I repeat, whatever the base class name you are mentioning here and the visibility mode, so that properties of the base class will be inherited to this derived class. Say suppose this is the class 1, class C1. So now how to inherit this into class 2. So class 2 colon public class public C1. So if I mention like this, that means what? The properties of this, the properties of this class 1, the properties of this class 1 will be inherited to the class 2 derived class. So when this properties has been called and it has been derived and it has been initialized to this class 2, right? So I suppose if you are creating an object, if you are creating an object for this particular program, right? So when there is a when there is a concept inheritance has been involved in your program, be do remember that you have to create an object for the derived class, right? Class C2 C. So C, or say suppose C obj, right? So C obj is said to be the object for this class C2. C obj is said to be the object for this class C2. With this object, with this object, with this object, I can access this property, and as well as from here I can access this property, right? So with the help of this object, I can access the properties of C2 and as well as C1. Why C1? Because C1 has been included in C2. So this is how you are extending the program in future, right? In future, if you wanted to extend the program, then you can use this inheritance concept and you can extend this, right? So just take the screenshot of this so that I can move to the types of inheritance. So the visibility mode is said to be what? It may be private, public or protected, right? So now the types of inheritance. So the single inheritance, which now I explained you, that is said to be the single inheritance. There is only one base class and one derived class, that is said to be single inheritance. And in multiple inheritance, there are multiple base classes. Generally, students, they do mistakes only here. Multiple, multi-level and hierarchical. There are other types also. There you people making mistakes. So please do clear with this. Multiple means what? Multiple base classes. Multiple base classes and one derived class. So there are 2-3 base classes, but the derived class is only one, and the derived class will be having the properties of all the base classes. With the help of this derived class object, you can create the execute the properties of B1, B and C, that is the base classes. Then hierarchical inheritance is only one base class, but it will be having multiple derived classes. So the inverse of multiple inheritance, the inverse of multiple inheritance is hierarchical inheritance, right? The inverse of multiple inheritance is hierarchical inheritance. Once you remember this keyword, then easily you can write it, because easily you can get the marks from this particular question, right? 95 percentage this question definitely it will come, because this is very important concept as per C++ is concerned, right? So they may not ask any programming from this, but definitely they may ask theory question. So whenever they are asking a theory question, it will be asked combined with the types, right? So you need to explain about this types with the help of the diagram. So this diagram carries half mark and the explanation carries half mark. So total for one particular type it is 1 mark. If they are asking multiple types, like there are 4 5 types, so in that case it will, the marks it will be reduced to half mark, right? Fine. So multi-level inheritances, it is like a structure, tree based structure. This is the base class and this will be the derived class for this particular class, and class B will be the base class for the class A. So class A is said to be the derived class, but this derived class is having the properties of B and as well as A, sorry, C. This derived class is having the properties of B and as well as C. So this is said to be multiple inheritance. Next is hybrid inheritance. This hybrid inheritances are used in next concepts also, like polymorphism concepts also, that I will explain you in detail. Right. This is said to be the collection of all the other inheritances, single, multiple, multi-level, and hierarchical inheritances. Let's see how it has been included. Consider 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 this class A and class B alone. Class A and class B alone, if you see, single inheritance has been included. Same way, class A with class C, single inheritance. Same way, class C to class D, single inheritance. Class B to class D, single inheritance. Right? Now, one base class, multiple derived classes. One base class, class A will be the one base class, and it is having multiple derived classes, that is said to be hierarchical inheritance. Right? Now you can see class B and class C, multiple base classes, but only one derived class. So this is said to be what? Multiple inheritance. Right? I repeat, class A to class B, single inheritance. Class A to class B and class C, hierarchical inheritance. Class B, C with class D, it gives what? Multiple inheritance. Class A with B and B with D, this it gives what? Multi-level inheritance. So that is why this particular inheritance type is said to be what? Combination of all the other types of inheritances. So yeah, that's all about the today's lecture. And students, you don't please leave this